Welcome, everybody. I am here today with one of your favorites, Colleen Callahan. So excited to have you back because honestly, our interview is one of my favorites that I have done, and
Too.
people also loved it. So, we previously spoke with Colleen about her near-death experience. The link will be in the description. And Colleen, would you like to start by just for people who may not have seen that first interview, just give us a summary of who you are, what you're about.
Okay. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me back with you. Okay, basically all my life I've been a mystic from the age of 5. I have had an ongoing relationship with an interdimensional being who is my higher self, who calls himself Michael. And he says he's the daemon, Michael, Daemon, daemon, and says he is my highest awakened self who is stewarding all of his incarnations to their full awakening. So we've had this relationship going on a long time. And among the things he taught me early on was lucid dreaming. And that became a really important recurrent theme. The ability to remember yourself as you descend into dreams turns out to be pivotal to escaping the dream of the world and becoming like a freewheeling lucid cog able to enter other realms. It's essentially lucidity is your wings, your ability to leave and return to and go to other venues, never losing your sense of identity. So over the years, Michael has, as of 1995, he originally had no voice. I didn't hear him at all. He talked to me in concepts and images. But in 1995, he started dictating books to me. And he developed a voice that I hear in mind space the same way that you hear a song playing in your head that just won't relent. That's the same way I hear Michael when he's dictating work. So I've been writing a lot of books for him. We've done a fiction series, and we have done a nonfiction series, half of it. 3 books are in that series. The first is Rise in Lucidity and Master Anxiety. The second one is Master Your Mind and Rise. And the third one is The Dream of Awakening. And all of these are expansions and corrections of course, the way that the Course in Miracles has been interpreted by many.
One of the things I wanted to get into is A Course in Miracles because I love the Course, and I've also seen a lot of what I believe is misinterpretation of it. So I'm curious to see if it's some of the same things I've noticed. But before we get to that, one of your main topics that you talk a lot about is lucidity. And
Yes.
there's a lot of this in your near-death experience. So go watch that if you haven't.
Yes.
But one thing that you speak about that I really would like to deep dive into today is the concept of creating the world that we're living in from a place of
Yes.
lucidity and consciousness as opposed to what we're doing right now, which is, I truly believe that, the outer reflects the inner, and that we are collectively co-creating the world that we live in that is full of suffering and injustice and pain, and that we're creating this world through projection. Though I would like to hear any and all thoughts that you have on how we could create a better world.
Okay. Right. Well, the fact is that you're a godling. You're a perfect extension of Source. You're just not consciously aware of your abilities because you're perceiving through this vehicle. And in perceiving through the vehicle, you get caught up in the dream of the world. And this is a dream, which we are each one projecting our perspective of out around us. We are like local verse projectors, each one of us, all right? So now there's 2 ways to create, and you will create constantly. You have no choice in this because of what you are. You're a godling. So the question is, do you want to create consciously what you will or unconsciously create what you dread? Because right now, mostly we're going through life unconscious of what we are and unconscious of the way we are creating precisely what we do not want. One of the chief ways we do that is by going, not that, anything but that, please, not that. And when you do that, you get that thing that you don't want, because your attention is your godly estate. Your imagination is your godly estate. And every time you invest attention energy in worrying about a future that you do not will to occur, you are actually making it much more likely. Okay? What you should do instead when worry attacks you, when your mind attacks you, is if you cannot stop your mind, because the mind has so much momentum in its conditioning to go over the same loops over and over again. If you can't just stop it, make it still, then it's like the mind is a teething puppy. If you don't give it something productive to chew on, it will destroy the house. So put it on what I call imagifestation. And that is basically describe for yourself in every physical modality you can, imagining yourself in the scenario, what the outcome you desire would be like. All right. So you find yourself worrying, and instead of that, you actively do something we have been discouraged to do since we were little kids. Use your imagination. All right. They call it fantasizing, and they say it is a waste of your time and energy, but it is not. It is actually exercising your godly estate. And so we end up using it by default just for worry, because we feel that's okay. That we're not wasting our time on worry. Okay. For some reason, we'll let ourselves do that, but we don't want to allow ourselves the joy of being able to create the emotional state of actually experiencing something that we will. And when you lucidly do that, because you have to actually pull yourself out of the loop of the mind, makes you lucid to do this instead, what happens is you change your emotional state. Your emotional state changes your chemistry, and your chemistry changes your physics, and that changes your field. And your field is where you interact with the larger field that we are experiencing in this dream venue. So you're never really, people talk about attraction. You're not really attracting it. What you're doing is retuning your field so that you are a match for the dream that you would prefer to have. Okay. When I was dead in the lustrous vast and I asked Michael how to get back into the dream of the world, he said, you do it exactly the same way I taught you to get back into dreams you'd awakened from prematurely that you wanted to get back into. You've put all of your attention on the last moment you recall in that dream, and then you tunnel with your attention and your imagination back into that dream. Simply will to be back in it and focus your attention there. So that's how you traverse realm boundaries. That's how I got back into the dream of the world. It worked just like that. Okay. And that's how the same way you tunnel between the versions of the world that you're having. One that you're not enjoying, in which you're waking up full of fear, and the other one in which you have triumphed over all of those issues. I call it creating a triumph scenario. Okay. Something that is a scenario that implies everything you ever worried about is gone from your experience, and you're happy you've overcome your challenges and obstacles. What are you going to do? What's it going to look like? So that you can put yourself in the experience of it and change your field so you can begin using your attention to tunnel into that experience instead of what you've been creating by saying, not that, please, not that. Okay. So that's basically how we do it, but we do it one at a time. And that begins to translate out into the dream of the world that everybody experiences jointly. Every time we share like this, that becomes more likely. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Wow. I am always blown away with your ability to describe things, like the vocabulary that you use and the way you explain things paints this vivid picture. And the way that you talked about traversing timelines. I don't
Realm
think you said
barriers.
yeah, realm barriers. And that's how you
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it just clicked
Yeah.
for me. I want to take a moment to share with you about these amazing supplements I found. As an active plant-based mom of 3, it's been on my bucket list for quite a while to find a supplement company that is both affordable and has quality ingredients. And I was beginning to think that such a company did not exist. And then I discovered Organic Muscle. These amazing supplements delivered all I was looking for and more. Every Organic Muscle product is made with fresh, whole food, organic, plant-based ingredients, and Organic Muscle plants a tree for every unit that is sold. It fits perfectly into the Jesus Way diet and lifestyle. This is my favorite, the Reds Blend Caffeine-Free Energy. It's filled with fresh, organic, whole food ingredients like artichoke, pomegranate, raspberry, reishi, cranberry, beets, and more. Click here or check the description to get some for yourself, get some for your loved ones, treat your body like the temple it is. Thank you to Organic Muscle for partnering with me in this video. Now back to the show.
Yeah, traversing realm barriers is a matter of retuning your own fields, and you're taking your attention into that other experience that you would rather be in. I got back into the dream of the world that way. I often go to sleep by way of taking, this is cool technique. You know, people go like, I want to have a lucid dream. How do I wake up in a dream? Well, there's lots of ways to wake up in this dream. You know, every time you're suffering, realize that you're telling yourself a story. And that story is creating the suffering, because I saw in my near-death experience that we're creating all of this on the fly. Each one of us individually is creating a local verse around us on the fly. And all the little fields intermesh and create a joint dream. Okay? In any case, when you get ready to traverse realm barriers as you go to sleep, you don't have to like hope you have a lucid dream. The more time you spend lucid in the dream of the world, the more often you're going to have lucid dreams. And you can also just take the light of your lucidity. Once you are lucid, once you understand that you are and actually are having the experience of your consciousness itself, conscious of itself, you're no longer identified with the body. You're no longer identified with the story, and you're certainly not identified with that destructive little mind that's been attacking your peace. In fact, you've gone out of that mind. You know exactly where you left it. You're now using the Christ mind, and the Christ mind is much more loving and forgiving and much more powerful. Okay, and it's a totally different perspective on everything. None of this is really real. The truth is unity. Everything else is just dreams. Okay, that's a wonderful thing. It means that we can create the dreams we will to experience, both in this realm where it takes a bit longer because of the dynamics of the field here. We have a lot of limitations here because we believe in limitations. We B-E-L-I-E-V-E, lie in the middle of the word belief. Believe. So many of the things we say to ourselves are only half-truths or not true at all. So you can carry the lamp of your lucidity right into a dream. You make yourself lucid, really present, and then go to sleep carrying that lucidity into the dream. It's a different way of us accomplishing a lucid dream state.
Okay, here's an interesting question, which I don't know if Michael shared anything with you about this, but these limitations that you were talking about, some of them seem to be built into our reality, like aging and gravity and things like that. Are these things that we've created collectively, or all of them are?
It's all created by our collective investment of our own godly estate, the mojo of our own belief, okay? It's the most interesting thing as you become lucid. And it happened for me. The last time was the strongest time was in 2021. I went through simultaneous withdrawals from Lexapro and Percocet. And for 9 months, my body had suicidal impulse. It was not suicidal ideation. I had that too. That was the mind, but the body kept trying to get me to kill it. Let it kill itself because it was so miserable. And for 9 months, I had to remain very present, observing the mind and observing the body and supervising. All right. And that led to this state where I finally kind of popped out of identification with the mind at all and into a much more lucid state. I'm not going to say I'm totally lucid, because if I were totally lucid, I would do what the Course in Miracles suggests. I would walk away laughing and say, it is not real. It has no meaning. The dream of the world, right? But the thing is that has been taken by some people, has made them very sad. It has made them kind of apathetic. It is not real. It has no meaning. What's the point? Why am I going through this? Okay. Because it has no meaning, all meaning comes from you. You're the one assigning the meaning that makes you miserable, and then you blame the world and disempower yourself by saying the world did something to you to make you miserable. Okay? And so the illusion that the world is doing things to us is born right there in our labeling and our judging. If you can stay in a reservation of judgment, because every time you judge it, you make it more real. When you forgive the way the Course teaches you to forgive, you're constantly not reeling it. You're saying, I don't want to make it any more real than it already appears to be. I'm not going to judge it. I'm not going to invest a big emotional reaction against it. I'm not going to resist it. I'm just going to turn my attention elsewhere. It is what it appears to be, and I'm going to try to make it a little more whole, a little less real, more the truth, because the truth is unity. Everything else is dreams of suffering. Michael says repeatedly in the books that he writes, I have never left you, nor have you ever gone anywhere except in dreams of suffering and separation. Okay? You are in truth still here with me in the lustrous fast, he has said to me in quantum eminence. You have never left me. You are only dreaming that you went back into the timeline of your future after you died from the horse. When you finally return to the dream, don't forget, it's still a dream. Okay? So you've just gone back like you visited in the life review your past. You went back and you're continuing the dream. But you could have picked it up anywhere. You could have gone backwards. You could have avoided the death. But then you wouldn't have remembered, he told me. So if you want to remember, you have to go back into the last moment so you can tell everybody what I showed you here. And so I came back through the last moment and just picked up. I don't remember the question you asked me. I hope that answered it.
Yeah, you definitely did. Let's talk about A Course in Miracles then. So you've received some information that the Course has been misinterpreted over the years, and which is interesting because wasn't the Course given to correct the misinterpretation of Jesus's teachings?
Of course, yes. But at the same time, the one of the things that has been the reason we don't wake up, the reason I did not wake up from the dream of the world when I died and not come back was because I loved the world and I loved everyone in it, and I wanted them to be real forever. I did not want all the loving things that I had created and all the loving beings I had known to not be real. And they were in the dream. And so I thought, because I wasn't entirely lucid, I was straddling realms. So my perspective was off, my context. I thought, I'm going to go back in there and tell them and help them all become lucid, and we'll all escape that together. We'll make a beautiful dream, but it'll still be a dream.
Right.
Okay? And so the thing is that Christ tells us, Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles, not only is it not real and it has no meaning, he doesn't go on to say, which means you're sovereign and you can make it mean anything you like. That has been ignored. Not only is that not mentioned, but he also says, I have kept for you every loving thing you ever created. In the Course, he tells us, I have kept it all. So every loving thing the children of God have created are hanging on the refrigerator of God in heaven, all right? It's all saved lovingly. Look what my babies made. That's the way I have an image of it. Look what my babies made. I saved it all. So you don't have to be afraid to wake up, because there's another version of the world that is the perfect world that contains every loving thing we have ever created, okay? And that is the happy dream. The happy dream the Course talks about is the dream we wake into in lucidity, all right? And because we are lucid, we can create that happy dream together. We can enjoy that happy dream together. Jesus isn't coming back in a body. He's coming back through lucidity. The Christ is coming through all of us, okay, in lucidity, as we remember that that is truly what we are. We are one. We are the unity of the Christ and the Christ love, the Christ mind, the Christ heart that is here. Okay, we are that being. Okay, in our book, the Master Your Mind and Rise, Michael says you will learn to be free, lucid. He calls them the same thing. To supervise your mind and be, again, its conscious architect. And you will learn to wield your will and focus your attention to create what is joyous and loving. All you get to choose is when you learn, which defines exactly how long you suffer. Okay?
Wow.
All right. So this is on us. We're doing this. People say, why does God allow this? Well, we're his children. We're doing this. The only way we can undo it is to learn the skills, the lucidity skills of controlling what we're creating consciously in order to create what we deserve. Okay? And we can do better. We have to love each other into that.
It's really a brilliant system if you think about it. If you think about this dream world as a system to help people awaken, everything that we see, and this might be seen as an extreme statement by some people, but in my personal experience, it is absolutely true of my life. So everything that I see out here in the world, my experience of it, is reflecting something inside me. And the more I can become more and more aware of the subtle states of consciousness, thoughts, feelings that I'm using to perceive my world, the more quickly I can change things out here.
And that is lucidity. What you're talking about is metacognition, and that is being the observer of the feelings and the thoughts that are being contained in the feelings. Because when you take your feelings and you say, what am I saying to myself in this feeling, and you put it into words, you often see that the belief that you're saying to yourself is not true, and all the power it ever got over your experience came from your belief in it, your trust in it. And so the moment you conscious of yourself, observe, I've been telling myself that, and it's not true, and worse, it's not serving me. And you can literally feel the adverse suffering emotion. And this is how I say to make yourself lucid in the dream of the world. Every time you suffer, realize you've fallen into identification with a dream character that you're playing. Ask yourself, what am I saying to myself that's generating this suffering? What am I secreting in non-words, just emotions? I'm not saying it to myself because I know if I said it to myself, I'd be forced to see how ridiculous it is, that it's not true and it's not serving me. Okay, it's actually creating hell, because that's what we've created here. It's an upper level of hell. And the dream is devolving into a nightmare. And what is the best way to wake people up? Nobody has any reason to wake up in a happy dream. Okay, so the stops are being pulled out to make people awaken, lucid. So we can, instead of leaving the dream of the world, we can begin to translate it, to change it ourselves by changing the things we say to ourselves and project around us. You know, there's so much competition in this world that we tend to see each other secretly as competitors for a limited amount of attention. There's a real constant war of attention. We're constantly bombarded, right? Trying to get our attention. And we see ourselves as competitors. And I find that my relationship with other beings, especially other creators, changes as I think loving thoughts at them and observe that I was thinking competitive thoughts and instead am now thinking we're all on the same team here. We're the ones, we're working actually together. We just don't know we're on the same team. I think of it as team lucidity because all of the teachers, the active ingredient that I'm able to ascertain from watching many, 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 many videos is they're all pointing at lucidity, the awareness of as consciousness itself, conscious of itself, as the transformative feature of spirituality. And people are expecting something big and sensational. And when you become identified as I am, sensational things do begin to happen. But the original shift is very subtle, right? And it grows in its power because you gain all this authority over your subjective experience. Things still happen in the world. The political situation as it is now, the first time this happened, I went on Lexapro for fear, for anxiety, because it re-stimulated PTSD latent in my body from my childhood. I'm like getting off of everything. I haven't had an anxiety attack. I used to be riddled with them. But as I became more lucid, I haven't had an anxiety attack since November of 2021. Okay?
Awesome.
I have learned not only by becoming the consciousness to identify the anxiety, and our first book, Rise in Lucidity and Master Anxiety, is extremely effective for how simple it is to conquer anxiety. Anxiety is just a loop of fearful, if this, then that, if this, then that arguments inside your brain that causes a chemical event cascade in your body. And if you focus on those chemical changes and the heartbeat and the breathing and the sweating you'll make it worse if you put your attention on it. But if instead you do something simple that challenges you mentally and takes your mind off of the event cascade in your body, the chemistry, you put it instead on something like a manifestation of what you will instead go into your triumph scenario, boom, just like that, you get into a different dream entirely and the anxiety attack just dies off. It never goes to fruition. So that was where I first began discovering the power in just using my attention, but you have to be lucid to do that. So metacognition is examining your own thoughts. Awareness, examining its thoughts. Lucidity is recursive awareness in metacognition. You are aware that you're aware that you're aware while you're examining your thoughts. You have backed away from being just the observer. You're observing the observer while it observes the thoughts. And that is lucidity. Now you're in charge of everything you say to yourself. The mind is something you design. I don't like that self-statement. It's not functional. I don't like that one. What shall we put in its place? Truly. Very powerful. Things that happen, they are what they are. They don't affect you like they used to because they don't set off this cascade of one vicious, scary thought chasing another. So lucidity itself is the door to access, as I am consciousness, all those really cool experiences that people think means I'm awakened now. And yeah, but the thing is you get through it through the very mundane step of becoming lucid, becoming the consciousness, observing what the things you're saying to yourself are creating the experience that you're having.
Thank you so much for breaking that down for us.
You're welcome.
So, just to make sure I understand, going back to where we started with the Course and the dream world, the misinterpretation of the Course, there's different ways I've heard it interpreted, actually. One of them is that there is no meaning in the world at all. And that's where people come away with, well, what's the point?
Right.
nothing's real, the world isn't real, there is no hand in front of your face. The other way I've heard it interpreted is that there is something real. It's the truth behind, it's the light behind. That what's unreal is the identification that we put into the world, the wrong ideas about it that create suffering.
The light behind is you. The light behind is consciousness. Consciousness, light, is a metaphor for the consciousness. When I say consciousness with a capital C, I mean the noun, consciousness. I'm not talking about a person being conscious or not. If you are thinking things in emotions and not putting them in words, you can be unconscious of what you are saying to yourself because you've hidden the actual words in a jumble of emotions. And until you put that jumble of that tangle of emotions into words, you won't be able to examine how valid what you're saying to yourself that's creating those emotions really is. Okay. So what is real behind it is you, me, us, consciousness itself, conscious of itself. That is the light. That is what's real here. And that feels like love. When you're centered in it, it feels like love. And I don't mean it feels like love like we call love here, which is kind of coveting and wanting and trying to possess and control one another. It's compassion. Okay, it is just vast compassion for everything. And then there's a lot of laughter. Actually, there's when you do want to walk away laughing. You know, when you wake up from the dream of the world, you just say, "Oh man, what a trip!" You know, it is a lot like an acid trip. My little sister said to me before she passed away, she said, "You know, Colleen, life is like an acid trip. When you're taking acid, every moment you're choosing between the good thoughts that lead to a good trip and the bad thoughts that lead to a bad trip. It's just that it's really slowed down so you can observe it happening." She was talking about lucidity. She's saying, I'm observing my mind as though the mind were not me, because it's not. And the mind on acid wants to take you down a bad path, and you have to guide it down a good path. This is clearly lucidity. But that's what we're doing in the dream of the world every second of the day. We're choosing the thoughts that lead to a good trip or a bad trip, okay? And becoming aware of that process, that dynamic going on constantly as you observe and you judge. And little thoughts run through your mind, and they wisp through your mind. At that level of awareness is where your guide speaks to you, and that's what you need to learn to observe. You need to reserve one half of your attention for what's going on inside, because that inner commentary, as wispy as the thoughts are and layered, is where you're actually creating your subjective experience and your part of the world. Okay? So it's a deep inner looking, half in, half out. I suspect that's why the Buddha's eyes are at half mast, so he can look half in and half out. Right?
Love that. If somebody is watching and they're inspired to become more lucid, what steps or tips would you give them?
When you're a lucid dreamer, well, first of all, get Rise in Lucidity and Master Anxiety. It'll help you. And also Master Your Mind and Rise. They're easy to read. They'll expand on A Course in Miracles, and they'll give you these specific lucidity techniques. But realize every time you're suffering, like when you're in a lucid dream, when you're in a dream, there are things that happen in the dream that you use to make yourself lucid. For instance, flying, dead giveaway. First thing when you find yourself flying, you go, "Oh, I'm dreaming." Okay, yeah, you're lucid right away, okay? In the dream of the world, the thing you use to make yourself lucid is suffering. Every time you're suffering, realize you have lost your lucidity and fallen into identification with the story of the character that you're playing, and you're telling yourself a very unhappy story. Use that momentum insight of lucidity. Oh, I did it again. I fell into identification with the character and I'm telling myself a sad story. So what story are you telling yourself? Put it into words. What are the emotions saying? We call this the practice. Put it into words. What are the emotions saying? All right? Really say it you'll know when you've got it just right. It'll click. And in that same instant, you will typically see that it's a belief. It's a lie. And it only gets its power over you from your belief in it. And at that moment, the emotion that was uncomfortable, the suffering, begins to dissipate, and you will feel it happen. And the power that was your belief put in that emotion will come back to you, and you will feel it happen. It is experienced as a feeling of spaciousness, of vastness within your being, okay, and of clarity, all right? And every time you take back your belief power from a belief that is not true and is not serving you, you become more and more lucid. Okay. And I've been doing this now since our first interview. I don't know how long ago that was, but I think you can, I think you can see the difference between me now and me then. It has made a huge change in my level of clarity, my ability to present this material, which is layered and subtle, okay, and nuanced as it is. It's difficult to present without clarity, okay, and in calm. I'm much calmer than I was because I think you interviewed me back in 2021 while I was going through Lexapro withdrawals. I thought I was going to die and never get, because of the withdrawals, I thought I was going to die and that I would never get to deliver the message of lucidity, that I actually literally raised myself from the dead, put myself back in the dream of the world in order to deliver. Okay? It is not hard to raise yourself from the dead. You're tunneling back into a dream, like you want to tunnel into variations of other dreams where you're having a better life. Okay? And you don't do it by attracting that life. You do it by changing your resonance, your field, your frequency, and stepping into that dream moment by moment. You're tunneling in with your attention. And you don't do it by paying a lot of attention to the things that are apparent obstacles. You think in ways of how to get around this, not in what's stopping me. What are my opportunities? Your challenges are all opportunities. Every challenge is an opportunity to become more lucid and more in charge of what you tell yourself, more in charge of how you show up in the world, what your frequency is like. So get out there and be your most beautiful, magnificent, magnanimous self, because if God can allow all of this and love us perfectly, that is our job here too.
Colleen, thank you so much. I wish I didn't have a time limit because I just love talking to you, but I do have to go here in about 5 minutes. But I want to give you a chance to share with the viewers where they can find you and your books and whatever else you have going on.
Okay. Books are available at crackedpotpublishing.com. You don't want to go to the old store. The new store at Cracked Pot Publishing is better. And there, if you want to do a coaching session with me, at the bottom of the homepage, you can sign up for a coaching session as well. I have a fiction series that is literary, erotic fantasy of transformation and redemption, and it teaches all the same lessons in A Course in Miracles, but it is in the form of the characters living out the story. And all the main characters have near-death experiences, so they have a different take on the nature of being and reality, a much different take. And it's much more the take we should be embodying ourselves, okay? And the other series is nonfiction, and we have the book on opioid withdrawal and how to summon your pets back from across the rainbow bridge into another incarnation with you, what you can do as a pet is aging, getting ready to cross over in order to hook up with them again easily, how to make that happen. And then we have the Mastery series, and that's available in nonfiction section too. So come see us at Cracked Pot Publishing. We also have a podcast you'd enjoy that is Imagifester Central, and that is on YouTube. And it's spelled IMAGIFESTOR. So if you put in the YouTube normal stuff and then /@ Imagifester1, it'll take you right there. I bet the link will be in the description.
Yes. Yep. All the links will be in the description. Thank you so much, Colleen.